All right, post-Kentucky traveling home thoughts, part 2. A little talk on the defense real quick here. So, I thought that Georgia's defense, look, they struggled at times, but it made a little bit of sense to me what was going on with the run game after looking at the snap counts this morning. Tyrone Ingram-Dawkins played 62 snaps. I would wager that's the most snaps that a Georgia defensive lineman has played since probably at least 2017, if not maybe longer, okay? Like, that dude, and he went out with an injury at one point too, so, like, credit to him. Christian Miller, who played 58, and Nazir Stackhouse, who played 52. That is a shit ton of snaps for any 280 to 320 pound man, but it's a lot really for Georgia's system. And I like, look, what is Georgia, where have they developed depth? Where do they recruit depth? Where do they put their NIL resources? In the trenches, right? Like, that is the most important position on the field, I think, in the eyes of their staff. And last night, they're without Warren Brinson, they're without Mykel Williams, they are without Jordan Hall. Like, those guys not being healthy, I think has, really tested and strained their depth. And if they can get 2 of those guys back, which I think they will, I think they'll have Brinson and Williams for Alabama, really changes the math there. First half, I thought Ingram-Dawkins was dominant for stretches. There were series where he just straight up dominated, took over, had, multiple tackles for loss or blew up multiple run plays. Watching him run with Vandegrift at times, or, break down and have enough, like, agility, dexterity to not get juked by Vandegrift, who we know is really athletic, was extremely impressive. I thought he played a fantastic game. Best game of his Georgia career when Georgia needed it from him the most. Stackhouse did a good job against the run, hung in there and, did what they needed him to do at that work rate. Now, with the amount of snaps these guys played, and Christian Miller as well, I like, shout out to that kid. 6 months ago, we thought he was going to USC. It seemed like, he was kind of all about finding the most NIL money. He has totally refocused himself, kind of changed, I think, his identity as a player. His work ethic has been outstanding all offseason. We heard about it, all through summer and fall camp, and that's paying dividends now. And I think he's become a disruptive player in run and pass. And so for all 3 of those guys, if Georgia can get them in a spot where they're playing more like 30, 40 snaps a game, which I think they will, they're going to be excellent. And I think, Georgia gets healthy, that defensive front can dominate. Last night, it made sense with kind of the work rate of that defensive line, why, as we saw that game wear on, Kentucky's run game was moving them. They were leaning on them. They were. Like, they were getting 5 yards a pop at times in the fourth quarter, it felt like, on, multiple kind of carries in a row, or, on a series. Credit to Georgia, though, for every time Kentucky, really threatened and started getting down, into scoring territory, Georgia bowed up in a major way. And I think Kentucky had 29 plays in Georgia territory last night and only 38 yards. I tweeted the stat earlier. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It might, yeah, I'm 99% sure that was the stat. So, like, that is basically, excellent situational defense. Georgia's defense was on the field for like 75 plays, roughly. Their offense was only out there for around 50. Like, Kentucky developed this big kind of advantage in number of plays and really had Georgia kind of worn down. I thought the punt by Stoops was kind of inexcusable for that reason. Maybe what was most inexcusable about that whole situation was that they passed on 2nd and 3rd down. I think if they run on 2nd and 3rd down there, they're probably getting a first down, but at the very least they're in fourth and short, and they go. They had the wind behind the hot kicker, I think 10 more yards there, and they're in field goal range. Georgia gets the ball back, did what they needed to do. I talked about that on the last video. But the defense for Georgia, I mean, the story of the night to me was missed tackles. I think that's excusable on some level when you consider the amount of snaps that defensive line had played. I think the fact that those guys were even, like, penetrating into the backfield at late in the game and, you know, missing tackles was actually a good contribution by them at that point, because, like, that did change the path of those run plays that should have allowed those linebackers to crash. I thought the linebackers were kind of so-so at times. They didn't tackle super well. There was, you know, Kentucky, their back, number 0, was kind of late in the second quarter. He started figuring out that if he just kind of hesitated and waited and chilled and, like, let Georgia's defensive line bite a little bit, that he could find yards on the backside of plays. I think it will be interesting to, you know, see kind of what Georgia will get Michael Williams back, I think, for the Alabama game, and that will fix some of the stuff on the edge. I know everybody likes to scream at Chaz Chambliss. I thought he actually played a pretty damn good game last night. He was being held at times. You know, there's times where he dipped inside or whatever, but, like, the outside stuff, that is supposed to be C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Smile Mondon's job to clean that up. And they, you know, weren't great last night stopping some of those perimeter runs. I thought they were great stopping perimeter runs against Clemson, so that's going to be something they need to go look at again. Defensive backs, I think it's hard to really complain about anything that you saw from those guys. They were, you know, pretty lights out. You know, Everett got lost a couple times in zone, and I think that like hurt them a little bit, and kind of created some situations where they needed to, like, there were times where I think they could have, you know, maybe stopped plays for a loss if he hadn't sort of gotten turned around a little bit. I think that his field awareness still kind of lacks at times, but, like, I'm nitpicking, and, you know, the kid played a good game. All of the secondary played a good game. I thought Aguero was really physical early, set the tone. You know, the big thing for Georgia is, like, they got worn down, and then you kind of saw the results of that. So, A, they need to get healthy. I think that's the biggest thing. And then, B, they really need to get these guys back, but B, I think the penalties, like, killed them last night. I mean, Kentucky was 9 of 16 on third downs to begin with, but there was at least, I think, 3 penalties that kind of caused Kentucky to extend drives, maybe more than that. And, like, I'm talking about, like, third down penalties, right? Some of them were tic-tac. Some of them were probably legit. I mean, like, the roughing the passer call was total bullshit. You know, Starks gets a holding penalty on the back end, and I think literally the play before, he was in position to pick off a Vandegrift pass that was thrown into double coverage, and the Kentucky receiver smartly pushes him down to avoid that, but there's no OPI flag. So the referees last night, I thought, were pretty atrocious in this game. But for Georgia's defense, they have been the best tackling defense in college football pretty much since Kirby Smart got there. I mean, even pre-national championships, going back to 2019, like, those guys have tackled really well. You look at missed tackle stats, Georgia's almost always number 1 in the country. I think they'll get that cleaned up on, you know, their bye week for Bama, but they got tested last night. They strained a little bit. I thought it was interesting. I, you know, talked to Raylan Wilson, kind of got him alone for, I don't know, a minute or two after the game in the post-game press scrum, and someone asked him, you know, like, what's the main emotion from this game? And I thought, you know, it wasn't relief or anything like that. It was like, well, I'm thankful because I think this exposed a lot of things that we need to work on and fix, and some details that we need to be better with. So I'm not worried about Georgia's defense. I thought, all things considered, they played a fantastic game. They kept Kentucky out of the red zone. I mean, I don't think Kentucky ever really threatened to score a touchdown in this game. They will be fine. They'll get healthy. They'll bounce back. They need more help from the offense, though. They need their offense, especially as they get healthy. If they're not, sort of close to back to 100% for Bama, they really need that offense to sustain drives because from the jump, I think the one thing you could kind of gripe with for UGA was Kentucky went on like a 6.5 minute drive to start, and it kind of set the tone for that game of like Georgia drives were shorter, and that also I think affected how Georgia wanted to play offense versus how they did play offense, because you saw them come out and play tempo on the first drive. First drive wasn't a good drive, but like they kind of went away from that, and then they came back to it in the third quarter, and they had those 2 long scoring drives to start the third quarter, and had the touchdown, and really kind of changed the game. Never took control of the game, but like they were at their best with tempo last night, and I think they've been their best with tempo versus Clemson as well. So it seems like Georgia's offense needs to run tempo, and Georgia's defense needs to be healthy enough and getting enough 3-and-outs to let them do that. Complimentary football, right? All right, I gotta go, but yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. DogCentral.com, Dog Central everything, YouTube, podcast feeds, all that stuff. Come check us out. I'm going to go write 12 takeaways and get that up for you guys, and hope y'all enjoy it.